is Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. And we go now to the closing statements in the National Security Administration's agency's debate. And we'll go with Seton Motley, president of Less Government, arguing the case to say, hey, this NSA program, we've got to change it. We can't continue it the way it is. Seton, closing statement.
I'll take a minute. The NSA program, the NSA program that Ryan described in his debate was about 5 revelations ago. We know much, much more, that it's much, much worse than the case Ryan Morrow is making. Additionally, he openly and credibly admits that James Clapper has been lying his face off, but then says, but we don't have to worry about it because James Clapper says only 22 analysts can do this. Well, if James Clapper's been lying his face off, why are we going to take him at his word on that now, especially when we have multiple people saying the exact opposite? That thousands of low-level NSA analysts can do that. Snowden said it, and Gerald Nadler, after walking out of a briefing, Democrat, New York, said it. So we don't even know where this has ended yet. We know that we're probably in the bottom of the first of a 9-inning baseball game on how bad this is. And we have, the Obama administration trying to defend itself on this has zero credibility.
Ryan Morrow.
Against someone, you can't just point to the fact that they've done something wrong previously, as James Clapper has. You have to provide evidence that your accusation is true. And so until proof is issued, that is presented, that shows that thousands of analysts are going through our emails and texts. I mean, if there's thousands of analysts that can do this, I'm sure we'll have dozens coming forward by now and saying how they went through these private communications. Then my opinion will change. But absent that type of proof, which is perfectly reasonable proof, I'm not going to jump to this big conclusion and say that we're living in a police state where the NSA collects all of our electronic communications and just goes through them at will. As of right now, the way things stand, the NSA is not storing all of your personal communications and then just searching through them for fun. They still have to get a warrant if they want to wiretap you.
Ryan Morrow, Seton Motley, thank you for giving your time to this discussion. And obviously, the story is still going, so we'll probably have you back and do round 2. But it was incredibly enjoyable for our audience, as well as myself, and it brought more things to light in a substantive way. Seton Motley, president of Less Government, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Crane. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Shifting gears, as stated, we will go now to the national security discussion, specifically the threats coming from Al-Qaeda regarding the embassies abroad in the Muslim world. Ryan Morrow, National Security Advisor to the analyst for the Clarion Project. Ryan, I gave you a double introduction, but it's a good way to segue into a new topic. And we go now to that, and it's a related topic in the sense of security. But where are these threats coming from?
Well, everyone seems to agree that this is coming from some type of Al-Qaeda network, whether that's Al-Qaeda in Syria or Al-Qaeda in Egypt or Al-Qaeda in Iran, who knows exactly. But my impression that I get based on our reaction to this intelligence is that it's not specific in nature because they're closing down so many embassies and consulates that it sounds more like a credible threat to an embassy in general. They don't know which one, and so they're going to close them all down. But the problem we face is that if you're a member of an Al-Qaeda cell and you pick out an embassy to blow up and they shut down the embassy on that day, you have the explosives, you can blow something else up.
So it's a threat of an embassy, and that's what you're gleaning from your expertise and seeing these things and how they come together, unfortunately. As you see that, we make the announcement that we're going to be closing down embassies. Is there a question on what threshold do you believe there is when we start to hear about these things? Because we do get these threats all the time, do we not?
We do, and that's why you have to sift through whether you have multiple sources saying the same thing, who's saying it, whether that source has a credible track of providing information. I would gather from this that they have multiple sources all talking about the same type of thing for around the same time frame, and that's why they're acting like this. But at the same time, everything is also in the political context, and you have an Obama administration that was really embarrassed in Benghazi last 9/11, and so they are maybe, I don't want to say overreacting because you're not really overreacting, but they may be acting in a more aggressive fashion than they have previously, because can you imagine the crisis they're going to have on their hands if another embassy or consulate gets attacked and then it's discovered that there was some type of information indicating that it was coming?
What about the birthday? President Obama's birthday is August 4th, Sunday. And are those threats specific to that? And does that send a signal in some way, not only to us, but also the rest of the Muslim world?
It's rare that the terrorists pick out a specific date, and it would be rare for them to pick out the birthday of a president. Now, after the fact, if they carry out an attack, might they say, "Oh, we timed that for President Obama's birthday just to give it some extra punch"? They might, but generally, terrorists, they do attacks when they work, and there's virtually any single day of the year can be a holiday or an anniversary of some kind.
What does it tell us about their ability to organize, and that we are obviously getting intelligence enough that there is some form of a plan being bantered about? The organizational capabilities of Al-Qaeda, we heard Al-Qaeda was decimated. I know that's part of the politics. I recognize that. Yet people still have to be held to account, because this administration has focused narrowly in on Al-Qaeda and not really connecting the dots, so to speak, to the greater war on terrorism, just the organization of Al-Qaeda. So what does it tell us about Al-Qaeda as an organization?
I think that the way we're reacting to threat is more about how we've changed than Al-Qaeda. I think that this is more of a reaction on the part of the administration to say, look, we've got to start taking these threats more seriously, and it's always better to go the extra mile, because threats to the embassies, credible threats, have taken place many, many times. And you know what? It's not that hard for a member of Al-Qaeda to put together a truck bomb and just pick out an embassy somewhere in the region and blow it up. So I'm not sure if this really indicates any type of increase or decrease in their capabilities.
Let's go broad thumbnail sketch. Going away from these threats, but recognizing they're there, mind you, just shifting to a broad analysis of currently where we are in the war on jihadism, Islamofascism, Islamic terrorism, war on terror. Tell me, Egypt, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, as we see Iran, nuclear weapon, marching towards, Iraq seemingly devolving. We have Syria, obviously, in a state of a civil war. Egypt, political uncertainty, and we supported a terrorist group, in essence, with the Muslim Brotherhood. So where are we strategically? And if you could compare it to 2013 to, say, 2008, what's happened and where are we?
I don't think we know where we are. I think that there's so many moving parts to this right now. And the Obama administration, because they do focus so narrowly on Al-Qaeda and they view the Muslim Brotherhood as moderate, they operate in a little bit of a gray area, and there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I think that's best. The best example of that would be what happened with Senator John Kerry when he was talking to that Pakistani television program, where he said that, the military intervening in Egypt was done at the request of millions of Egyptians, and it was a corrective measure done to restore democracy. And that made it sound like the administration had changed its policy and was trying to signal support for the military's intervention, which I think would have been the smart thing to do, but now he's backtracking on that. And I think that when you have the Secretary of State not knowing how to answer a very basic question like that, that shows just how convoluted your strategy is.
With a convoluted strategy, there are outcomes that, especially in light of foreign policy and things here domestically, all about the economy and the scandals of the IRS and Benghazi for that matter. Bottom line, where are we losing ground, and have we lost ground already in Iraq, Afghanistan, those two fronts?
I would say we're losing ground in Iraq. Afghanistan, I'm not ready to say that we're actually losing ground. There's some worrisome signs with the Taliban still being able to organize and carry out attacks. But overall, I still think that we're progressing in Afghanistan. Iraq is tough because we don't have a presence on the ground, and you see Al-Qaeda growing in strength because you have the civil war over in Syria, so they can send their operatives to go get battle experience there, come back into Iraq, and use Syria as their safe haven. So Iraq is backsliding. Afghanistan, I would say, is slowly moving forward. But as U.S. forces pull back, we could very easily see that progress reversed.
Final question. You're with the president, and you're advising him. First off, address how important this war is. 1. 2, if it's that important, how often should the president be addressing the nation and the world concerning it?
I think whenever you have American soldiers in harm's way, the president has a duty to boast about their success at every turn. And it absolutely infuriates me that we never hear updates about what's going on in Afghanistan. So there can be progress. Heck, even if there's problems or defeats, that should be recognized. We don't hear anything from the administration about what's going on in Afghanistan. So all the polls of American public opinion right now are meaningless because there's no information for people to base their opinions off of. And if I'm an American soldier in Afghanistan and I see progress on the ground or I capture a high-level terrorist, I want the American people to know that.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Ryan Morrow, overtime with us. We appreciate it. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care. Ryan Morrow, National Security Analyst for the Clarion Project, clarionproject.org. On the flip side, author of Separated at Birth and Inside Gitmo. When soldiers are smeared, this man steps up. So what did he think of the president comparing Ho Chi Minh to Thomas Jefferson? Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Kakulu on the flip side. And then Ben Johnson with a LifeSite News update. That's right, U.S. Bureau Chief LifeSite News, Ben Johnson. Stay tuned for American Family News, onenewsnow.com.